a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Singing in the rain, just... I'm sorry. Hi, welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show here on Home Times, where we're changing the world, wait for it, one snowstorm at a time. So, welcome to our lovely first Thursday in February, and our even lovelier monthly co-host, Mr. Matthew. Matthew, are you there?
I am. Hello.
Oh, welcome to the lovely Matthew. So, Matt, you can be seen Monday through Friday, 4 to 6, drive time at WMNH 95.3, Manchester, New Hampshire, or you can go to mattconnerton.com. You can go online. You can be watching his show live. You can call in. You can text in. You can send carrier pigeons. As far as tonight's show here on the Dr. Kevin Show, you can also call in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. And in calling in, you can be part of the conversation. You can be part of the solution instead of your silence being part of the problem. Matt, how are you, buddy? Welcome to a drenched, wet February.
Yes. Well, could be worse. It hasn't been too bad a winter so far.
Not really. I mean, last weekend's snowstorm was a bit hairy. How many inches did you get?
Well, I don't like to discuss that, Kevin. I'm Irish.
Are
we talking about the same thing?
No.
The
snow.
How
many
snow.
inches of snow did you get?
No, I think we got maybe 7 or 8 at most. We didn't get as much as they were forecasting.
Yeah, it's so funny because we share the line here in Nashua with Kingsborough, Mass, which got 13 inches, and they said we got 8.8. I don't think I think we got a little more than 8.8. I mean, I had to shovel it, and Kingsborough, which I could put one foot in Nashua and 1 foot in Kingsborough. They got 13 and we got 8.8. I think some of these numbers were a little off, so I'm not exactly sure what we got. All I know is we got snow, and now we're getting rain, followed by ice, followed by snow. Delightful.
Yeah.
So,
well, maybe it'll stay warm and it'll just end up being rain. Who knows?
That's what I'm saying. Like, let's just I think what we should do is we should just bring an air wind funnel. We could just plug it into all of the major government buildings in DC, pipe the hot air up here, we wouldn't see any snow at all.
That's right. There you go.
Because if there was ever a place full of hot air, it's Washington, D.C.
That's right.
So, as always, I've got a couple of topics in the back of my head. I'm going to see if you get to them, and if not, I'll make sure I bring them in. But what's been the hot conversations of topics on Matt Connerton throughout the first month of the year?
Well, I've been talking a lot about Russia and Ukraine. That's been a big subject. This week, there's been a lot of talk about Whoopi Goldberg as well. Jenny, my partner, is Jewish, so that really hit with her. So, I mean, it seems like this week those have been a couple of really dominant things. I think yesterday we spent the entire, was it yesterday or Monday? Or Tuesday? No, it must have been yesterday. It's hard to keep track, but I think yesterday we ended up spending the entire show talking about Whoopi Goldberg and her comments and what got her into trouble. And, what else? Russia seems to be the biggest topic, though, that we've been discussing.
Well, there was that like minor takedown of the ISIS person that happened this week. Just minor details, kind of swatting another mosquito, no pun intended, in the Middle East.
No, it's true. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit today too, and it's like, yeah, everybody makes a big deal about it, but it's kind of like with the drug war. With the drug war, you round up some drug dealers and you put them in prison, and then some more just come along and take those jobs. It's the same thing with whether it's ISIS or Al Qaeda or whomever. You kill one, the so-called leader, and then someone else will fill that position. So it's not like, oh, we've finally defeated ISIS. It doesn't really work that way. But it's something for people to crow about and get excited about, I guess. Maybe I'm just cynical.
Oh, well, there's no maybe there. We know you're cynical, Matt. We love you for it. We wouldn't want you any other way.
Well, that's good.
Your cynicism is one of the few things that ever makes me look good.
There you go.
Hey, we all have to have a purpose we serve. So
yes.
Yours is to make me look good. No,
yeah.
I want to, it's kind of like the Medusa effect. You cut off one snake's head and 5 more snakes' heads show up. So, it might slow ISIS down a little bit. They might trip a little, I'm sure it's going to, there'll be some little infighting because the next leader doesn't just pop up without a few side deaths along the way because, everybody wants the prime spot. But we'll see how. It's the other thing. But I want to talk about the Whoopi Goldberg thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you talked about it all. I know that Jenny is Jewish. So, she made an ignorant statement. I get that. She said she realized she made an ignorant statement because she always associates race with color. But my first question is, do you think she was sincere and being upfront? Or do you think that she has some hidden anti-Semitic agenda?
I don't know. I wouldn't think that she would have any kind of bigotry. I've never gotten the sense from her that she does. But then again, she said what she said on The View, and then she went on Colbert, presumably to do some damage control because that's what one does, and then kind of dug herself an even deeper hole. And it's just kind of stunning. The ignorance of it is a bit stunning. I didn't think she was. Because she said something on Colbert about how she thought it was just, as a black person, to her it just looked like white people fighting with other white people. It's like, well, you're not helping yourself here, Whoopi. I almost wonder if that 2-week suspension that she's been given, if that wouldn't have happened had she acquitted herself a little bit better on the Colbert Show, or Late Night with Stephen Colbert, whatever it is that it's called. So I don't know. I think she's a bit ignorant, and hopefully she will have learned from this. I certainly think her being suspended for 2 weeks is a perfectly appropriate thing to do. I'm just kind of stunned by it all. I'm genuinely surprised that she said what she said initially, that the Holocaust had nothing to do with race. Like, well, it had everything to do with race. Hitler, and if Hitler hadn't been stopped, he would have kept going. He would have, killed the Jews and then, killed anyone who was not sufficiently Aryan. He wanted an Aryan race, a quote-unquote pure Aryan race. That was what he was really after, and he would have killed anyone who didn't fit the bill. And so for anyone to think that that's not about race is just strange. So I don't know what to make of her. I'm just surprised, and I hope that she learned something from this. Well,
I agree with your assessment of, to the point of Whoopi has never struck me as anti-Semitic or racist in any way. I was shocked by the comment that she would make it there. and of course, I have my own secondary. I have a secondary beef I want to bring in here, but we'll put that on hold for a moment. We'll line it up behind the chickens and the pigs. And I want to, that I questioned, like you, I questioned, Whoopi has taken crap from the Black community in the past for calling out stuff. You remember that?
I don't remember. No, I don't. I'm not sure specifically what you're referring to. No.
There was, and I'm trying to remember, and I should have looked it up, but there were a few years back, and Whoopi made some comments which offended some of the Black community. I mean, like there were people kind of going after her, and she was kind of saying, like being Black doesn't entitle you to certain things, and I mean, on the other hand, she was trying to do a balance, like, did we get a very short end of the stick? Yes, but how long do you get to use that as an excuse to not make an effort? I mean, she was kind of pushing at that, she wasn't denying, certainly. I mean, she certainly wasn't done like a white supremacist. That would be a feat. But she was trying to kind of go in that she felt that the Black community needed to also step up to the plate and take some responsibility of what the Black community was doing to itself within itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, we all got what the whites have done to us. I mean, I don't remember her exact quotes, but I'm trying to remember how many years ago. I mean, I want to say 3 or 4, but probably knowing, since I'm older than dirt, it was probably 7 or 8 or, something like that. But she took some heat for it because she kind of felt like that, yes, you needed to hold the accountability of what happened, but then Blacks also had to do some self-accountability, and they didn't get away with not having any self-accountability and making everything about the other. I mean, are you remembering any of this, or did I have a bad dream?
No, that does sound familiar, actually. Yeah, that does sound familiar.
And so that's why I was kind of surprised, because she didn't back down. She did her Whoopi, and she wouldn't back down. And she said, if you're good to me and you're a white person, you're good to me, I look at you as a good person. If I have no reason, I don't look at you as a bad person because you're white. I don't look at you as a bad person because you're Black. I don't look at you as a bad person because you're Asian. You're a person, and I deal with you as a person. But she wouldn't back down, and it kind of quieted down. Which I found interesting was that she said, that this was just white people doing it to each other, because it almost seems to be the antithesis of that stand she took, which again got her some blowback, lost her some gigs, stuff like this. I mean, her career took a little bit of a hit for a bit because of it, but she crawled back out. It was before she was on The View, so now we're probably how many years ago? But it was before The View, I'm pretty sure, before she was co-host on The View. But she ended up in no man's land for a while because of it. And so here she is back again, and it almost felt like she was doing 180 for what she got in trouble for before. I mean, does that make any sense when I say that?
Yeah. Well, she's no stranger to controversy, I suppose.
No, and that's still not going to stop me from watching the new season of Picard where she's on as Guinan, because I love her.
Yeah.
That's the point. Yeah. I am rarely known to boycott movies because of an actor that's in it if I like the movie. Sorry, it's just not my thing.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
So, Yeah, so I thought that was kind of interesting. The other thing is, which consistently gets missed to me, was absolutely the Holocaust major focus point, but it wasn't its only focus point. They didn't go after only people of Jewish faith and of Jewish people, because they were also heavily going after LGBT people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I completely get and would never minimize, and I'm horrified at the article I read today about how many young people don't even know the word Holocaust as in reference to what happened. I mean, the number was scary.
Yeah. Wow.
And that there has been a systematic effort to continue to almost push the Holocaust into the memories, and and it's starting to show out in some ways. But there was, and so absolutely. But I always think, like, you almost never hear the Holocaust was also an attack, was also a death attack on anybody that was LGBT. And, and that's where we also, if you were perceived, you didn't even have to be gay. If you were perceived as gay, you were rounded up. And so, again, I don't look at this as in any way minimizing the effect it had on the Jewish people, but why can't we include the fact that it was the Jewish people and the LGBTQ community?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that, we are seeing the repeat of, what happens to transgendered people today. They're some of the most persecuted, have violence committed upon them people, no different than in Germany.
Right.
And during the Holocaust. And, and we have this uprising, as we should, or those of us that, are willing to be aware of it and talk about it, about, we have to fight against anti-Semitism, and we have to be aware, and we have to have people remember, but I want them to remember the whole story. And I'm tired about the other part of the story always getting forgotten as well. And Whoopi has always been a big, huge ally of the LGBTQ community. And so so I just needed to throw those 2 cents in. I'd like to start hearing people refer to all the people that were being targeted, all the groups.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going on to break. And we'll be right back here on the Dr. Kevin Show.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Coping-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
If you're feeling increasingly lonely right now, you're not alone. It's totally normal. Even though we may not be able to get together in person, connecting virtually with friends and family still gives you a chance to interact with people and may help raise your spirits. Join a virtual book club, set up group text chats, or online video coffee breaks with coworkers.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Hello, and welcome back. So the other thing, which I don't know whether you guys brought up or not, is, she has identified as Jewish herself.
Yeah, she said something about being a quarter Jewish, I think.
Yes, and that and she's told people, I'm a Jewish American princess. But in 1994, she talked about her heritage, and she doesn't practice any religion, but she identifies as Jewish, and adopted her distinctive stage name partly because of that family heritage, because she was born Karen with a C, Johnson. And because Goldberg, you would think if you were getting introduced to somebody named Goldberg, what would you think?
It didn't even. It's so funny that didn't even. It seems so obvious, but that didn't even occur to me through all of this. That she has a Jewish last name, never even occurred to me. That's funny.
Yeah. So, again, it's ignorance, and it's a kind of it's a kind of myopathy almost, is the only way I can say it. But I can't find, I tried while we were on break and I can't find it, so we're going to move away from the topic. I know that I read something earlier today when I was preparing the show, and the numbers of young people who don't recognize the Holocaust or don't recognize the word or associate it with what happened or didn't know what they were talking about was alarming. But I can't tell you what the actual statistic was because I can't find the right article. The article I found when we were on break did mention the fact she was Jewish. And I'm like, that's right. I knew that. I knew that's how she identified herself. So, yeah. Moving right along, what are your thoughts about Biden's push that he's going to that he is committed to getting a black woman on the Supreme Court? I mean, obviously he's getting quote unquote taken to task by the other side as not being fair to all of the people that are qualified. What do you think?
Well, look, I mean, I think it's perfectly appropriate. I think that he is fulfilling a campaign promise. I've always said I believe that Joe Biden owes his presidency to Congressman James Clyburn of South Carolina, because it was in South Carolina where he made that pledge at that debate. Biden he had done terribly in Iowa, during the primaries, the Iowa caucus, and he really tanked here in New Hampshire in the primary. And then the next big one after that, of course, is South Carolina. And at the debate in South Carolina, it was James Clyburn who had convinced him to make sure that he said it out loud before that debate was over, that when he was president, he would nominate the first black woman to be on the Supreme Court. And he's just fulfilling that promise. But I believe I say that he owes his presidency to James Clyburn because it was the combination of that and James Clyburn giving that speech where he said to his black constituents, we know Joe, and more importantly, Joe knows us. And, that was on the heels of Biden, what he said during that debate. So that is what turned it around for him in South Carolina. Had none of that happened, I believe Bernie would have been the nominee. Biden was sinking fast, and I thought Bernie was going to be the nominee. I didn't think Biden had a way back. So he made that promise, and now he's just keeping that promise. And the other day on the show, the subject came up, and I had an opportunity to do something that I haven't done in a long time. I actually said some very positive things about South Carolina Senator, conservative Republican Lindsey Graham, who went on television on Sunday morning. I think it was on Face the Nation. It was one of the Sunday morning talk shows. And he gave a full-throated endorsement for Biden nominating a black woman to the Supreme Court. He actually, he didn't sound like a conservative when he was talking about this. In fact, he said it was completely appropriate. He said we should have a Supreme Court that looks like America. He did not feel that it was any sort of affirmative action because, as some others have used that term, he said, no, this is not affirmative action. There are several that he could think of, black women who would be incredibly qualified to be on the Supreme Court. And he thought it was great, and he was all for it. And, it's been a long time since I've been able to say something nice about Lindsey Graham, but there you go. So, not everyone on the right is condemning this, but those who are, they look really bad, especially Susan Collins, senator from Maine, who, seemed to think it was just terrible that the president would do this. And this is after, someone brought up to her, well, what about Ronald Reagan, who committed to appointing a woman to the Supreme Court and was specific about that it would be a woman. And Susan Collins seemed to think, well, a woman is one thing, but it's another to say a black woman, I guess. She didn't use those words exactly, but she didn't seem to have, she is shockingly inarticulate to begin with, Susan Collins. So, she really had no way of explaining anything. But yeah, so there's some of this mock outrage on the right. But there's also some people on the right, especially Lindsey Graham, who get it and are supportive. And I think that's great.
Well, and he's specifically supportive of Judge Michelle Childs.
Yes.
Judge J. Michelle Childs, who's from South Carolina.
Yes.
And, of course, that's who Clyburn is pushing as well. He's aggressively pushing. It's not just any black woman. He's pushing Michelle J. Childs. But he made some interesting statements that I feel have some real merit. Claiborne did.
Mm-hmm.
That Judge Child's background, she attended a large public university on scholarships. She earned her undergraduate degree at the University of Southern Florida, business and law at South Carolina, and that two of the other top contenders, one is a double degree from Harvard and the other got a degree from Harvard and Yale. And he's like, we need somebody on the Supreme Court that's lived like an average American, basically. He didn't quite say those words, but that, this is somebody who's really gone through more of what an average American has done, so to speak.
Yes.
I'm not, and it's like that. If she's qualified in all the legal ways that she needs to be qualified, and she is, or she wouldn't be getting picked. They wouldn't put up somebody who's flunked out of kindergarten constantly till today. But I was like, that makes sense to me. I think that we should have somebody. I think we should have several people on the Supreme Court that actually had to live like struggling Americans, like real struggle Americans. Not I'm struggling. I had to have a secondhand car to drive to my private high school. It was such an embarrassment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I mean, we'll see what comes out, but I'm actually all over this. I mean, of course, there's heat because Clyburn's really pushing, and as you've said, Clyburn. Would we have a President Biden without Clyburn? Do you think Bernie would have beat Trump if it had been Bernie against Trump?
I think he could have. Yeah, I think he could have.
Yeah. I've always been a split on Bernie. I love him, but he makes me nervous. I have to say, I think I'm just a little happier that we all know he wasn't my first choice. I was never quiet about my first choice.
Mayor Pete.
Mayor Pete, my boy Pete. Well, there's Pete and there's repeat. He's going to repeat only next time he's going to get all the way to the Oval Office. That's my prediction.
Well, he's a young man. He's got a long political career ahead of him.
He sure does. By the time he gets to the White House, his kids may be able to vote for him. Who knows?
That's right.
Then he'll just be another old white man, which is what he's been campaigning against. Isn't it time we stop having old white men?
Yeah.
So anyways, okay. But I wanted to bring this up as one of the things. I guess this has not been one of the hot topics yet on the Matt show, the whole Supreme Court thing.
Well, like I said, I mean, I was talking. I did talk. It was nice to be able to say something nice about Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, I have somebody I've known for 5 or 6 years that I met through, I can't remember who I met them through. I've never met them in person, but I Zoomed and talked with them, and for several years, their college, not that means that you're bright. You can be stupid as a stick and get a degree from a college if you play your cards right. But I'm talking a college-educated, working, living, born, and bred in the Ukraine friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And not that it probably make any difference, but I'm not going to mention any names. But he and I, we've been talking for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I mean, that's right. He did some graphics work for me, and we became friendly, and we stayed friends, and we built a friendship. That's what it was. He did some early graphics for it. When I was trying to get some graphics done, he was doing I think it was even before Freelancer, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And we connected. We connected in a number of different ways, and we talked, and we've always stayed in touch. I asked him a week and a half ago, or when the Russian troops mounted at the border of the Ukraine, I reached out and I said, "Hey, how are you doing? Is everything okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, why? What's up?" And I said, "Well, the whole thing with Russia." He said, "Oh, there's always something with Russia because daily life goes on here. What's going on with Russia now?" I'm like, okay, this is somebody living in the capital of the Ukraine, college graduate, working out into the world. This is I'm not talking to somebody who you would think would not know what, and that was his response. What do you think of that?
Well, it actually doesn't surprise me. And the only reason it doesn't is because from what I've been reading, there is an attitude amongst Ukrainians that, this is just more of the same from Russia. Life in Ukraine has kind of gone on. Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, has kind of encouraged people to just go on with their lives and not worry too much. And I think there's probably a sense of complacency is not quite the word, but I think there's probably just a sense in Ukraine, this is my impression, that, Vladimir Putin is rattling his saber and is probably not going to actually do a full-scale invasion. And if he does, we'll take it as it comes. But until then, we're not going to worry too much. I think that's my impression, is that that's kind of the attitude there. And that they're pretty skeptical that Putin's going to invade. So unless it actually happens, they're just not going to worry about it, which might be naive. There might also be something kind of healthy about that, though, not worrying about something that hopefully, probably might not happen.
Or
so,
that the
I'm not surprised.
Or that the average day in and day out making a living, working 9 to 5 Ukrainian really has a whole lot that they can do about.
Right.
Yeah. It's always like there is that drama on the world stage through U.S. World News, and there's always the drama, and there's always the pictures of the marching people in Tiananmen Square, and there's always all of the hype, and then you hear from the ordinary citizens, and yes, God knows there have been atrocities. And God knows we need to keep our eye on it, on whatever role we're playing on the world stage. But the average person still has to get up, and they still have to get a paycheck, and they still have to go to work, and they still have to buy food, and, they still have to decide, do they trust whether or not they still need to be wearing a mask, or should they get vaccinated? I just found it interesting. And you said you've been talking about it all week, so I thought I would throw that in. I thought you'd get a kick out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Economic sanctions. Do you think that Biden's playing this well? What are all your conversations? When we get back, I want to see how the Matt Connerton Show has solved this world problem. Here on the Dr. Kevin Show.
The Real Conscious Connection. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
If I could be you.
And you could be me?
For just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, and welcome back to the last segment of the Dr. Kevin Show here on Om Times. Remember, if you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can do so by calling in at 202-570-7057. So, Matt, tell me, how have you resolved the Ukraine-Russian issue on the Matt Connerton Show?
Oh, believe it or not, we haven't. Oh, we're so close, though. We're so close to solving it. No, I think that. Oh, sorry. I was just adjusting something. I think that Putin is looking for some sort of. Putin needs an off ramp, and I heard something floated today on. I didn't catch who it was who was saying it. A retired general who was saying that maybe if we can somehow offer him something that he can take to the Russian people and say, look what I did, like maybe some sort of public declaration that NATO will never invade Russia or something like that, which obviously NATO is never going to invade Russia, but something that he can show and say, look what I got. Obviously he's negotiating for something, because when you're negotiating, you start high and then you find a way to reach a compromise. And of course, so what he, demands is something he can never have, which is our commitment that Ukraine will never be a part of NATO, which is obviously a non-starter. We can't allow Russia or anyone else to dictate who's allowed in NATO. That's that's unacceptable. So that's where he starts, and he's going to have to accept something less than that. I mean, unless he actually does intend to invade, but I don't think so. I mean, it would be disastrous for everyone, but not least of all him. So I think he wants something. If we can just find something to give him, like some sort of declaration that we'll never invade NATO, or I don't know. I don't know what else we could give him, really. But
I have the perfect thing.
Yeah.
Donald J. Trump.
Yeah. He's welcome to him.
Hey, we can give him Donald J. Trump. We can throw in Donald Jr. and what's the other one's name? Eric or something.
Eric. Yeah.
It's hard, It's Donald 1, 2, and 3, and then Donald in a dress. We can throw in Jared and Ivanka, and I mean that should. I mean, Ivanka. She sounds like she should live there. We're all set. We'll give Putin the Trump family. And he can back off.
Ivanka is a Russian sounding name. I never noticed that before.
Of course it is. Yeah. How do you think if old Donald J. actually managed to overthrow the government and stay in power, and was our president today, how do you think he'd be handling this?
Oh, I don't think. I think if how would he be handling it? He'd probably tell Putin, "Do what you want." I mean, he wouldn't. He certainly wouldn't stand up to Putin. I mean, he wouldn't stand up to him in Helsinki at that press conference. He actually sided with Putin against our own United States intelligence agencies.
I was thinking he'd probably send him, a bottle of champagne and a key to the city.
Yeah,
that is. So let's move on to the January 6th committee. How do you think they're doing? You thought they were doing some interesting stuff a month ago. How do you think they're doing? And what, if any, effect do you think Donald's declaration of pardons for those misunderstood and mistreated people that tried to overthrow our government in his name are getting? Comment on all of that. I'm sure some of that had to have come up in some of your shows since we've last talked.
We haven't talked about that a lot specifically, but I think, I'm happy to see the January 6th committee continue their work, and a lot of people are testifying, and I just, I hope that they're expedient in all that they do, because they only have so much time. Once those midterms hit, Republicans will take control of the House, and they will end the January 6th committee. So they've got to keep going and keep working as fast as they can, because the clock is ticking. I guess I was a little bit surprised at Trump just coming right out and, he does like to say the quiet parts out loud. I guess I was a little bit surprised at hearing him come right out and say that he's going to look at pardoning those people from January 6th. But, he's going to say whatever he has to say to, get that support. So he can, because I'm sure he's running. He wouldn't be doing all these rallies and everything if he wasn't running. I'm sure he's going to run for president again.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the only way for him to shift to keep dialogue shifted to this is just a political attack that has no basis. I mean it's the witch hunt because he's gonna declare. Now DeSantis is in the last poll nipping at his heels closer than ever before. What do you think? How's that gonna work out? And for the last poll that I saw, actually had 40% of Republicans say that they weren't that they believe the election was stolen, but they feel like Trump's time has come and passed as president. Did you see that poll?
Yeah, that's a little surprising to me, but it is encouraging. I like to think that there are Republicans who are ready to move on from Trump. I worry that there's not enough of them, and I wish there were more of them. I wish that number was higher. But it does give me a little bit of hope that, that maybe his hold over these people isn't quite as strong as I thought it was. I've always said most Republicans I know don't like Trump. Most Republicans I know are deeply, deeply in love with Trump. But maybe that's not quite the case to the extent that I thought it was. So that's good. I mean, DeSantis is also awful. And actually, what's funny, depending on the subject, I mean, if we're talking about vaccines and vaccine and COVID policy, but specifically vaccines, Trump is actually better. DeSantis makes Trump look good because at least Trump is, for all of his faults, Trump is not an anti-vaxxer. I wish he would do a lot more than he has in terms of getting out there and telling people, please, you got to get vaccinated. I want to see him go on Tucker Carlson and say it on Tucker. But, but at least he's pro-vax and he does want people to get vaccinated, whereas DeSantis couldn't care less. So I'd actually, between the two of them, I would actually prefer Trump. At least if we're talking about that particular issue. But yeah, it seems like there may be a swath of the Republican Party that is actually ready to move on from Trump.
Trump's narcissism would never allow him to lose the nomination without taking down people with him. If you think that DeSantis got within strike distance of being chosen over Trump to be the candidate for 2024, what do you think our little narcissistic boy would do? Thoughts?
I think he would say, hey, Ron, how about forget this and be my running mate? When I'm the nominee, I'll pick you to be my running mate. You can be my VP. You're a young guy. You'll have time to be president later. That's what I think he would do.
And if DeSantis refused?
Well, then it would get very interesting, wouldn't it? Then it would be, where I'd kind of, I guess, it's like that feeling of sitting back and watching your enemies destroy each other. That could be interesting. Trump versus DeSantis, if it got nasty, that could be kind of fun. I mean, they're both a couple of POSs. So I don't know. I'd kind of like to see that matchup, actually. And Trump is already, they're kind of already turning on each other a little bit, which is fun to see. I like to see that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're building up for something. I mean, and I, in some ways, DeSantis is almost scarier than Trump because he has more political savvy, meaning that more of his really atrociously un-American, bigoted, white supremacist. I mean, I have days I don't even know if Trump really is a white supremacist at heart. I don't know. I think he's at heart wherever his momentary mouth takes him and his passion takes him, and I think that he is a Trump supremacist.
Yeah, I think he says and does whatever is politically expedient for him. Who knows what's really in his heart,
I mean, talking about the prosecutors all happen to be people of color going after him, that they're being racist, and then having the next day and the next couple of days having 5 traditionally black colleges all have bomb threats, close them down. Connection? Oh
yeah, of course. I think there's definitely.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I saw is the FBI is starting to think it's a bunch of kids.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. The last little thing I saw was that they were tracing it down to these kids, like teenagers, that were using this distortion software to not be discovered, that were coming from different parts of the country. But it was kids. I mean, it was teenagers. I couldn't tell whether if they were in high school or college, but it was definitely the way it was worded gave me the feeling that you're either talking about, late high school or early college age kids.
Yeah.
That, which, if you're a Trumper, you're a Trumper. And if Trumper says that, racism is afoot, going after those black people, because they're also racist, that would be the thing to do.
Right,
but
right.
Yeah. I mean, the FBI has some leads on it. So I hear Ivanka is going in to talk to the January 6th committee.
Oh, is she going in? Did she agreed?
Yeah, that's what I heard. She's agreed.
Oh, okay. I missed that. Yeah. Well, good. She definitely knows things.
I mean,
a lot of them just
go ahead.
A lot of them just refuse. A lot of them just refuse to cooperate.
And she may too. But she will not. She won't give up her skin to save Daddy's skin.
Right.
I truly believe that she is not so stupid to think that Daddy won't throw her under the bus if it's going to forward Daddy's chance to stay out of jail and end up in the White House again.
Sure. Well, too, I mean, I think she just turned 40. She's only 40 years old. She's got, a lot of life ahead of her. And, maybe she doesn't want to, risk throwing that away for her, 75-year-old father, trying to cover up for him, I mean, she may as well look out for herself and go in there and answer those questions,
Is the $1 million donation to the nonprofit that Mark Meadows is running from the Trump campaign that got donated right as the January 6th committee was being formed and he stopped doing? Do you think that's going to bite? Somebody going to get bitten over that, or do you think that's just going to be treated as business as usual in Washington?
That probably business as usual in Washington.
Okay. What's the story that has caught your attention that you don't think people are talking about enough? There's usually something that you've picked up that you don't think is getting enough airtime. What is it this time?
Yeah, it actually relates to the situation in Ukraine where the Russians, or it's believed to be the Russians, who've been messing with those undersea cables that carry the internet between continents. And, there's a theory that the Russians have been doing that because as a prelude to an invasion of Ukraine. You could really cripple communications on this planet if you start cutting undersea cables. And that's what they've been doing. It's presumably the Russians. Who else would it be? And their submarines have been spotted near those cables, and they've been doing that off the coast of Ireland. And that's a real concern. And also, too, they were about to have some military drills off the coast of Ireland, but the fishermen said no and drove the Russians out.
The fishermen drove the Russians out? Really?
The Irish fishermen, they said, we're not going to stop fishing here. We got to pay our bills. And the Russians actually backed off.
Interesting. Yeah, that was grandstanding. I'm pretty sure that was grandstanding. Matt, as always, thank you so much for bringing the wit and wisdom of the Matt Connarton Unleashed show to the Dr. Kevin Show. We'll talk to you in a month. Give my love to Dan.
I will. Thank you. Bye-bye.